Hey guys, hope you're well. My name is Rob. Welcome to Kinetic Rugby League. In this video, I'm going to be going through my Super League Round 2 predictions. I'll leave a recap of last week up on the screen for you now. So I only got 3 out of 6 last week. I could have probably gotten away with changing the Salford prediction. The prediction, just to be clear, was made before the squad news, by the way. I assumed that given the takeover that they'd be fine to put out a proper team by then, but they weren't. I think you guys probably would have let me off if I did change the prediction, but I picked it. I'm going to stick with it. But when I get to the Salford game in this video, there's a little bit I'll have to get into with that. But 50% this week, I was okay with it. Given the ridiculousness of round 1, I'm okay with actually just getting half, but hoping for a regular minimum of 4 out of 6, hoping for plenty of 6s as the season goes on. But yeah, that's the formalities out of the way, and let's get on with the first game of this week. Kicking things off, we have Wakefield Trinity taking on the Hull Kingston Rovers. Starting with a few notes on Wakefield. I think it's great that they're already up to speed with the energy and pace that's required for Super League. They've got a Super League level head coach. They've got plenty of Super League level players with great experience in there to give them a good foundation to work from. So the fact that it already showed like they were ready with the intensity, energy and pace is a good start. Pair that with the completion rate for their sets was pretty high. I think it was in the low 90s, possibly something in that range. But it's a good start in that area because that's part of the basics. And when you are a perceived underdog, and they will be an underdog going into a lot of these games, the basics are massive. So in that department, that's great from Wakefield. There's a few too many missed tackles individually, so that's going to need to be cleaned up massively. But as a unit, they were quite solid. Scramble defence on both edges was quite impressive. Couple times where Leeds looked like they had a bit of leverage, maybe space to run, but there was so much effort and energy to get across on both sides of the field, with the 3 edge defenders, both sides, working really hard for each other. So yeah, as a unit, great work, great efforts individually, just got to be stronger with the tackles. But a few notes there for Wakefield. On to Hull Kingston Rovers. They need to be a little cleaner in possession. Completing at 70% roughly, which is poor, really, really poor. But for this game, their individual speed and I think power and carries through the middle over the course of 80 minutes will possibly just be too much for Wakefield. I think with the, again, referencing the energy and intensity that Wakefield brought to their opening fixture in Super League, they'll really put up a fight against KR. But I think over the course of 80 minutes, as the game, gets further on, with fitness and overall quality and just difference in speed, Hull KR will start to find their advantages as they go on. And as mentioned in the power rankings as well, I would like Hull KR to start setting up proper plays with purpose towards the left edge. Few too many times they're already down to the left of the sticks and just forcing it, not really coming up with anything. So set up in the middle or to the right and move it to the left with purpose, not just in your own half or in the middle third, in the red zone. You've got all the speed in the world down the left-hand side. Use it, for goodness sake. Use it. But to come to a conclusion, I think the biggest advantage probably on Wakefield's side is confidence. Just in terms of the opening round, Wakefield will feel more confident with their result compared to Hull Kingston Rovers. May feel slightly disappointed. Probably not concerned that they might not be as dangerous as they were last year, but I just think that's the biggest advantage towards Wakefield is just pure confidence. But the more important advantages lean towards KR with the individuals, because if they are a little bit stale like they were at times against Cass, they've got individuals that can just flip a switch at any given moment, whether that be Evalds, Gildart, Lewis, Lytton through the middle, Petahiku down the right-hand side, individuals that can just change a game when needed, or even the forwards in Warrior Hargreaves or Sue. You never know. Minchella through the middle as well, who's a double threat, either carrying or shifting the ball. So individuals can really drag them through this game if they're a bit too stale again. And we've seen from Hull KR with this coach, with this squad, because it's still pretty similar to last year, their ability to learn and adapt that we saw over a lot of last year, it's still within their DNA. And I think they'll recover. And as mentioned, Wakefield, they were quite solid as a unit, but they need to reduce the number of missed tackles. And Hull KR individually will just eat that up if that's the case again. So for a score prediction, I'm going to go with Wakefield Trinity 14, Hull Kingston Rovers 26. Next up, we have the Warrington Wolves taking on Catalans Dragons, starting with the Warrington Wolves. I think they looked pretty clueless with the ball in the first half. It was quite poor to watch, lacked creativity, speed, intensity, connection was a real issue for me. Defensively, I think was fine for the most part, which I'll take. Not too bad. It's fine with me. Completion rate was pretty poor. I think the kicking game was also extremely poor from Ratchford and from George Williams. They were barely getting those kicks into the corners. It was either getting to Swift on the 20, or if there were like kicks towards the edges, it was just straight up in the air. There wasn't really much distance on it. The kicking game was poor. So hopefully there's some improvements there. There's an individual who I'll get onto shortly regarding the kicking game. I think Y fans know who I'm talking about. Also, Matt Duffy, stop letting the ball bounce, please. For goodness sake, just commit to the egg, all right? Just commit to it, please. Now, on him, on the positive side of things, clearly man of the match, clearly. Individually with the ball, he was so important with the try, the assist, his overall speed, his passing was looking really good as well. That's improved a lot towards the back end of last season as well. So, yeah, Matt Duffy, just make it happen again. So, game winners. That's what you need. You know, when it really mattered, you have a game winner there. On to the Catalans Dragons. For a team that is so stacked with quality, what a disappointing result. What a truly disappointing result that they had. I talked about this in the power rankings. They had 36 play the balls in Hull FC's 20 metre zone. They put up 0 points. Hull FC had 5, by the way, in Catalans 20. Catalans had 36 play the balls. In Hull FC's 20, scored 0 points. Their try came from a break in the middle third. So, not great. Now, I do think that they should at least compete in the forwards, and they'll probably win in that area. Given the difference in size, they should win in the forwards. And they do need to pin Warrington back, but then they've actually got to do something with that good field position. Again, 36 play the balls, didn't do anything. So they need to do something when they do pin Warrington back, and it was quite easy for Huddersfield to do it to Warrington. Catalans could do the same. So for a conclusion in this fixture, I think the kicking game does lean towards Catalans, as well as the power in the forwards, and therefore field position overall is advantage Catalans. I think the Dragons' attack versus Wired defence is a bit of give and take, so I think there should be a few points put up just from the sheer pressure that Warrington's going to have to deal with. I think they'll definitely have a few goal line stops. They'll look impressive again, in their own 20 defending, but just from the sheer pressure that they're going to deal with, I think over the course of 80 minutes, they will leak at some point. So hopefully, as from a neutral perspective, Catalans actually look effective in attack. But Warrington, I think, will make a lot of great defensive stops throughout the game. I think Catalans will pin Warrington back a lot. And in response to that, one thing I'm hoping Warrington does a lot more this time around is spread the ball earlier in the tackle count. I think there's a couple times they wanted to. Once or twice they tried it in the first half. But they need to connect more with Duffy, making those sweeping runs to the edges. Get him making those ridiculous numbers of metres per game again. To spread the ball early, and you're going to have to get out of this field position that I think Catalans will find themselves in. And finally, I think this will be a really competitive game anyway, but if Leyland actually plays this week, again, I don't know why he wasn't playing, maybe a knock against Whitehaven, I don't know, or just being rested, again, I don't know. But I think if he's playing, Warrington suddenly have a plan and clarity in the kicking game. But Warrington, so far for me, have shown enough in attack and in defence. Catalans conceded way too many, didn't score enough. So Warrington have just shown enough on both sides of the ball right now just to be the slightly better team. But I think without Leyland, it's very close. With Leyland, it's slightly more comfortable. But for a score prediction, I'm going to go with Warrington Wolves 24, Catalans Dragons 18. Next up, we have Hull FC taking on the Wigan Warriors, starting with Hull FC. According to the stats, they completed at 99%, which is a cracking start. Absolutely brilliant start. Now, they only had 5 play the balls inside the Dragons' 20. doesn't sound great. What it at least tells me is, at least partially, is that based on the tries they scored and the meters that they put up compared to Catalans, that they know how to shift the ball deep in their own half and in the middle third. It tells me that they know how to make ground, at least further down the field. So maybe there'll be opportunities this time around where they'll have more play the balls in Wigan's 20, and we're going to have to see how well they can shift the ball. So that's one sort of question mark that we'll have to wait on. So from what I have seen from the just stats and the highlights video, because I've not been able to see the full game, they do look like they move quicker with the ball. I think it does probably come from Caesar, Cust and Rapiner. I think being players that they don't need to overthink. I think given the experience and quality of the experience that they've had in Super League and the NRL, that it's just things kind of come naturally to them. You know, the three very experienced players, they do like to get a move on. You know, they like to get the ball moving. Caesar did that plenty with the West Tigers, even though they weren't a great team. He was always looking to, you know, move the ball with pace. So I think based on their combined experience, it comes pretty naturally to them to play the way that hopefully they will do this season, with more pace and clarity in attack and overall just looking comfortable, not having to overthink. It's natural. There's instinct how they play. On the side of Wigan, defensively, of course, they did a great job, especially going a man down as well during the game. Of course, they had to go a man down towards the back end. That would have been very difficult for them to have to, you know, plug in those gaps or those wider gaps that were then there. But to go a man down, it didn't really look that different. They still competed very well, and they didn't allow, you know, huge gaps for Leigh to just suddenly find. They did a great job in that position there. So that could have been a great chance for the game to open. They didn't let it happen. So great job defensively from Wigan. I think the kicking game was a little too basic for me. Now, a few things. The placement of the kicks from Harry Smith was off at times. Rather than getting those kicks right into the corners, it was just a little bit too short. So there was one issue. And there was a lot of times where the three players on the edge, so Nsemba, Wardle and Marshall, they'd just go. Like, if you're really far back in your own half, if the players are offside from the kick, you're probably not going to be within 10 by the time the players caught the ball. So you can chase early. But this is when they're in the middle third, on the halfway line or on the 40, and they're kicking on the last tackle, chipping to the corner. Nsemba, Wardle and Marshall, they're all offside. And then they have to give 10. And then they're just standing there waiting. And then there's a lack of pressure on Armstrong or the wingers as well. So, you know, just be patient and then chase. Go, put some pressure on them. So just a little note that they need to fix there. And because of that, didn't put Armstrong under enough pressure. They did at times, of course, but not as much as they definitely could have done. I think based on what we know about this coach, about this squad, they can obviously play like the best team in Super League. And they might have just been having an off day on the attacking side of things, and we know that they can adapt as well. They can be better than this. So for a conclusion, I think Wigan should be slightly stronger through the middle with their carries, which they were still quite strong against Leigh, but I think they'll be strong this week as well. I think they'll start the game with a lot more intensity and creativity, because they'll obviously want to get on the score sheet this time around. FC, I think they need to complete high again. That's one massive thing there, just getting the basics right. They need to put Field under pressure, a lot like Leigh did. They really pinned him back behind the 10. They've got to make Wigan work it out their own half, deep into their own half, pin them back massively, and start sets in great field position. But I do think with limited evidence of Hull FC's ability to shift the ball inside the red zone, and the defensive resilience, the evidence that we got from Wigan in tough defensive positions, I think on the defensive side, Wigan should be okay in that area. And I think also, flipping that, Wigan will clean up their sets. And individually, as the game goes on, they'll offer a lot more quality in attack and pose more of a challenge for Hull FC to have to deal with this week. Catalans probably being a bit too stale. Wigan, I think, will improve massively because they'll have learnt a lot. So, just off that basis for a scoreline, I'm going to go with Hull FC 14, Wigan Warriors 20. Next up, we have the Salford Red Devils taking on Leeds Rhinos. Now, I'm going to get through this one pretty quickly. I'll cover a few bases real quick and explain what's going to happen in regards to this game. So, as of right now, I'm assuming that Salford will be under the exact same situation as regards to the financial restrictions again. So, there isn't much to say on that. Even if they put out the strongest possible squad they could within the restrictions, I'm still taking them to lose. The argument against Salford, even if they had the full team, is that Leeds have now had actual time to prepare from a proper Super League game, time to learn, possibly work out the kinks as well. The argument for Salford, if they have the full team, is the fight and desire to want to get points and respond quickly, and the fact that I think Salford's first team is actually just better than what Leeds have right now. So there's that. On the side of Leeds, to actually talk about them as a team as though they were going to be playing against a proper opponent, really low intensity when it mattered against Wakefield. That was really disappointing. They looked a bit stale and lethargic on both edges, unfortunately, and a bit clueless at the end of sets. Sort it out, please. In terms of tackle busts and missed tackles, actually really dominated against Wakefield in that area, so maybe they could again against Salford, if it's a full team, of course. And defensively in the middle, I think they seem fine, but just on the edges, it's questionable, but there's time to improve. For the most part, it was okay defensively. So for a conclusion with this, I'm expecting Salford to have to play a weakened squad. So best case scenario for Salford, it's a weakened squad compared to what they want. Worst case scenario, it's the same team as last week. So some first team players might be in there just because they will naturally need some actual experience and fitness levels going up before their season starts. So we might see some regulars, just some, just purely for fitness. But for a score prediction, I'm going to go Leeds 60, Salford 6. Just because, yeah, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they'll get points. So here's what's going to happen with this one, just to be clear. When I hear news about the squad, I will put in the pinned comment below this video. There might not be one yet, and that's fine, but if there are changes to Salford's potential squad, as though they might have a close to full team, I will put a pinned comment below this video with an update talking about how I think it could then go with the full teams available, and give an official score prediction in that, and I will use that for next week's prediction as a reference. So I hope you guys can allow me that that adaptation given the circumstances. So yeah, Leeds 60, Salford 6 as of right now, with Salford having the kids available only. Next up, we have the Castleford Tigers taking on St Helens. So starting with Cass, they had some really good work through the middle from Westerman and Lawler. I think they did a lot of good work with the ball and defensively, and the willingness to kick as often as they did, to put in a good chase to try and pin Hull Kingston Rovers back. I really like that about their game. The willingness to stick with the grind. I like that about their game against KR. I think Rimbu had a decent start to his Super League season, and he will grow week by week, and he'll maybe grow in confidence and quality, which leads to more runs in dummy half and more quality runs from dummy half as well. Liam Horn, he was comfortable in the 13 role as well. He'd switched between 9 and 13. As expected, I talked about that in my preview video, like the rotation between Rimbu, Horn and Westerman. We saw that against Hull Kingston Rovers between 9 and 13, and Westerman taking on the prop role, starting with it, of course, but that was to be expected, and they can develop that however they see fit as the season goes. So it's nice to have that kind of rotation and flexibility in there. Fletcher Rooney was really impressive. Great individual try and dealt with a lot of pressure extremely well. Those high kicks that he dealt with, decent chases at time from the edge players on for Hull Kingston Rovers. Really impressive. Great job. Under a lot of pressure, dealt with it extremely well. And Tex Hoy was the leader and creator for Cass. He was involved in 99% of the things that were good from Castleford, and I expect him to take a lot of confidence out of that game, and a lot of other individuals as well. But yeah, hopefully they can push on from that. Now for St Helens, we weren't able to see them tested against Salford, unfortunately, but they did exactly what was expected of them, so you can't knock them for it, and I certainly won't. Now, individually, the forwards dominated, as expected. Sailor got to open up a bit and show his speed. Murphy on the left wing looked lively. And even when Salford's young lads shifted across, like, there was sometimes they really moved to try and get in Murphy's way. What I liked from Murphy was he didn't give up on the play. It wasn't like he just take the tackle. He cut back in, look for the extra metres, and try and eat up every single yard that he could, make players miss, and I admire that in the competitive nature. I'd kind of, in a way, admire that Saints didn't just sit back, they kept going, because you've got to maintain your own competitive integrity. Somehow, you don't just want to sit back and give your own fans nothing. You got to at least give someone something in that game. So, for a conclusion going into this one in particular, I do think it will be seen as an extra training session for Saints, that game against Salford, which might help them a bit going into this game. There's less pressure, but confidence and a positive attitude going into this one. I think Cass will also make it tough for them this week. So, how will Saints deal with adversity? We will have to see. I think Cass could really test them in that area. And I think Hoy will pose a real threat for them. And Assy, hopefully, who will be better with his kicking game, will put the backs under pressure, make them have to do more work out the back as well. And then there's Rooney, who can contribute with, hopefully, another exciting run game. So we'll see. Now, Saints' squad for me is just stronger, and I think they'll be fine over the course of 80 minutes. But I would like to see resilience from Cass, but I think Saints stronger right now. So I'm going to go with Castleford Tigers 18, St Helens 30. Finally for this round, we have the Leigh Leopards taking on the Huddersfield Giants, starting with a few notes on Leigh. So first of all, they do need to complete sets at a higher rate. It was pretty poor against Wigan, unfortunately, and I think they certainly will. I think they will improve in that area. Now, they had 47 missed tackles versus Wigan, so they need to clean that up as well. First of all, because players like Wolford, Lollahea, and Swift over on the left-hand side, they'll take advantage of that if you don't get a hold of them. They will eat up those metres if you keep missing tackles, so that's one important area. Obviously, great job defensively overall as a unit, and I would expect them to continue that kind of resilience, ingrain that into their DNA, and then build the attack as they go. But after coming up against another great defensive team in Wigan, I think it's useful experience for Lamb and O'Brien and Armstrong to develop a connection over time. And if they give Armstrong more opportunities to make sweeping runs out the back, early in, deep in their own half, in the middle third, early in the tackle count, he could start to find some line breaks as the game goes on. I was really impressed with Tessie Niu, solid runner, but overall very impressed and proud of the scramble defence and unity that they showed as an outfit for the whole line to really shift across, close the gaps on the edges, and shut the door for Wigan. I was very impressed with Hanley as well defensively too. Big tackles on Wardle and Field, for example, to not let them just get through easily. Now for Huddersfield, Richardson only had about 3 training sessions with the Giants according to Luke Robinson, and I think will look more sure of himself as a number 7 going into this week. If he does play again, we'll have to see. I don't know how long Clune's out for. I really don't know. Now, Huddersfield, they will need to shift the ball a lot quicker to get around this lead defensive outfit, I should say. And I think they can win in the forwards. I think Huddersfield can win in the forwards based on the difference in the pack sizes. But I said that about last week, and they competed pretty well. Another thing as well for Huddersfield is having somebody like Cudjoe in the 13 role. I think he adds a lot of stability in 13. In that position. So we'll see how he fits into that as the season goes on. And just a lot of hard work from the forwards really helped them to gain good field position. But they do need to connect better when spreading the ball, which they could do this time. We will see. I think getting that game out of the way, more training sessions with Richardson there and Lollahea and Gagai, who will develop over time, of course, as well. They'll find ways to improve. Could be a rocky start for Huddersfield, but there are good signs there. Now, conclusion for this game, I think Leigh will have to do a lot of work out of their own end again because of the potential loss in the middles, and the Giants need to keep Leigh back, pinning their own 20 and possibly 10. They did allow Warrington out too many times from ill discipline, just giving away penalties, so if they clean that up, they could pin Leigh back a little bit. But I think the raw speed of this Leigh team and just defensive solidity will add up over 80 minutes, and they'll put up points. They'll put up some proper points this week, provided they actually complete a lot better. That's, I think, the most important thing. First of all, complete better, get yourself in better field position. So I'm going to go with Leigh Leopards 24, Huddersfield Giants 12. So if you guys have your own predictions this week, do let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like. It does help to get the video out there to more people. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with more Rugby League content, and check out the Kinetic Rugby League website in the description down below. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.